Hello,
welcome.
Hello. We're here just chatting about what is enlightenment here today. And partially that's just because we are the Trauma to Enlightenment Academy. So we can kind of get started maybe talking about, I don't know, do you want to just say what is enlightenment to you? And maybe even that journey from why we chose Trauma to Enlightenment to represent this academy?
Absolutely. You know, I've worked with folks with CPTSD and PTSD, dissociation, like super deep trauma for years, and I find them to be the most magical people on the planet. And, you know, they have all these amazing spiritual experiences, right? And, but that inner compass is not pointing true north, right? Like it's off kilter. Instincts are off kilter. Intuition is off kilter because of everything that has happened through life, right? And the entanglement and the distortions that they have lived through. So through my years of working with folks, it was like, oh my gosh, as we started releasing them from the entanglement, these what the world calls gifts, I call extraordinary sensory perception, right? Where they're just taking in this extraordinary amount of information within the environment and have this deep, deep ancient wisdom at the same time, right? And to me, a person, you know, once we can get the entanglement cleaned up, right, then we're on that path towards enlightenment, which as I watch it happen, it's like integrity, right? It's like when things are lining up and that inner compass is coming here. We're moving out of that I space, that
very individualistic,
right? Like these things are happening to me kind of space, versus being able to maneuver that like a ninja. And you know, be able to think about the collective.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I feel like that, you know, part of that, so I guess people equate, I feel like, a spiritual awakening to enlightenment. Do you see those as being the same thing?
I think that
because I kind of do. Like,
I think enlightenment is a way bigger thing than an awakening.
Okay.
Because
so that awakening's the beginning, maybe.
Yeah, and those awakenings, if we don't do something with them, they close.
That's true.
So, right, you know, a lot of people have awakenings, and it's like, well, did you ask any questions? Did you explore that? No, I just felt tingly. Or I just had a white light burst in my head, right? Versus exploring what's going on there. So what I find is...
You can continue,
What I find with the uniqueness of the quantum jumping method, we can do kind of all of that at the same time, because as we're reorganizing time and memory, right, there's room for these things to show up, and we can start exploring and say, well, you know, did you ask any questions when you saw that spirit? Right? Or did you think about how you could help in that situation? Or are you thinking about yourself still and thinking about, oh, my hair stood up on the back of my neck? Right? There's again that space of I.
Yes.
Right? And that introversive.
Yeah, it's just what
It's
happened to me, what did I see instead of what I was trying to be shown.
Right. Or what am I supposed to, if I am a healer and an emissary of that, that's enlightenment, right? When we're completely in integrity, and every choice that we make filters through all 5 systems being in alignment.
So it's not this like essential, like sometimes, you know, even enlightenment, it's almost like feels abstract, just like this idea of like maybe even ancient knowledge coming to you, or like finally realizing XYZ. And it's like that might just be something as simple as stepping into that like space of wholeness and realizing that you're not the only person on the planet and acting accordingly.
What I find is when we move into wholeness, we start having the spiritual experiences.
Okay.
And we can start defining them. We may be having them before, but like they're scary.
Right.
So when we move into that place where we can go, okay, this is what I'm seeing. Can I look at it objectively and outside of my templates of fear?
Okay.
Enlightenment is fear-free.
Fear-free. Okay. I like that.
It's fear-free. Like back to the masters when they're like, the kingdom of God is right here. Yeah. That's what they're saying. Like we move out of that bottleneck where we're completely focused inward on ourselves. Yeah. It is interesting because in my work with people, they're like, well, I'm going to focus on myself. And I'm like, well, that's all you have been doing for the past 35 years.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Maybe it's time to think about it from a different perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
Because most of us are walking around thinking about ourselves 24/7
and it's like, even if we want to help other people, which I feel like a lot of people in that space do, where it's like, you feel the call and then you're not reaching that point maybe and getting burnt out because you're still focused on yourself and you're not actually stepping into that place of enlightenment that would allow you to not think about you. And like, I don't know.
And enlightenment has been used in this very intangible way.
Yeah.
Like, Gandhi says, when what you think, what you say, and what you do are the same.
Right.
Right? Because when you are, there's no doubt.
Right.
There's no fear. And that doesn't mean you're always going to be right and you're never going to make a mistake in your life.
Yeah.
That's going to be being, in integrity enough to say that you made one.
Right. Yeah.
And take ownership and do the next right thing.
So, yeah, just even like, the Trauma to Enlightenment Academy, it's not like we are in a sense giving people opportunities for these spiritual experiences to happen, but it's almost like giving people the new template of mindset along with that, and then allowing them to have these experiences. So what is like some examples of some spiritual experiences that maybe people are already having and not recognizing as something that could lead them into a next level of enlightenment?
Well, I just had a phone call literally 2 days ago from this young man who is very gifted.
Okay.
And, his entire focus is on himself and his body. Mm-hmm. Right? So when he walks in places and feels energy, that's where it stops.
Okay.
It's like, oh, I had a tingle. I had a tingle and and over and over. And it's like, well, did you ask about why you're having a tingle?
Right. Yeah.
Like that's the next exploration for us is to ask out rather than just totally focusing on the minutia.
Yeah. Or even just thinking about it internally. Like I think so much is like we keep everything in our brains and our thoughts, and asking it out into the universe, like actually putting it down on paper or like speaking aloud to like have those questions answered, takes it out of here and brings it into the
One
universe.
of the universal laws is ask and you shall receive. Yeah. Right? And we don't ask.
Yeah.
We just walk around thinking we know everything.
Right.
Or feeling confused or feeling afraid to ask.
Yes.
And and so we're still in kindergarten.
Yeah.
As a human race, we're very much still in kindergarten around what we're capable of. And when we think about what was it, 2,000 years ago, we had a teacher saying, dude, anything I can do, you can do.
Yeah, right.
Anything. You could move mountains if you want, and we're walking around like we're in kindergarten, and that's how we're approaching.
Or
you know,
even,
it's
just having the experiences and then feeling fearful around them and then not taking action because that fear prohibits so much in our lives.
Yeah, and fear is instilled through many religion templates, right? That fear of like, I'll have people approach me and be like, I don't know if I can work with you. I'm a God-fearing person.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm sorry.
Right.
I mean, how terrible. Like, to fear your creator.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's an
just that phrase, like God-fearing, whatever God it is, like, you shouldn't be fearful, maybe. And
those splendors off are people's mindset, right? There's a benevolent energy that was the that created everything. Like it.
Something.
And I think we can just go, there's something bigger than me.
There's something bigger than me. Point blank, but there should not be fear of that.
Not fear of that. It created everything here.
Yeah.
So often, like, I was speaking with this young man recently, and I was like, he was like, well, I don't want to get too involved with earthly things because I want to be a follower. I want to be, spiritual. And I'm like, well, do you think the Creator created the earth and created everything that's growing here? Why should we be afraid to have a plant and a candle on our altar?
Yeah, right.
Why should we be afraid of that?
Or even to have an altar in the first place, my God. Outside of a church or whatever. But
what's interesting is back in the day, everybody had a place that within their homes that they would go to be centered, right? And there would be a place, like my grandmother, like they were what do you call them? With the Mary in them, or the Jesus, the shrines.
The Mary and the Jesus.
I can't. I was raised Catholic, but I can't remember what that's called.
Yeah.
Anyway, grotto.
Okay, a grotto.
Most Catholics had something like that in their yard or in their home where it was like an intention, like I'm going to walk by that and I am a spiritual person.
Well, I was even thinking like I went on a trip and the Mesa Verde, it's like a national park, but like they had these spaces that were collective sacred spaces and otherwise, but it led to that like group enlightenment whenever it wasn't a collective space, even because they were able to sit there and call in, ask questions, listen essentially. To the universe.
The morphic field of energy has been laid down.
Yeah.
Time and time again to where that circle is safe. That circle that energy is conditioned for change. Right? Our energy out there is sameness.
Right.
It's not geared around change. So when we come into that space and we're really setting those circles up intentionally, right, that's what we're bringing to the table is intentionality.
Yes, I think that's huge.
It's just intentionality.
Right.
Like if you have a candle lit in your house, when you walk past it, it's like, oh yeah, I remember why I lit that candle.
Yeah. Because you're not going to reach that space, next level, if we're calling enlightenment, that next level of being and we space, and you're in integrity, you're whole. And so being open to that, you do have to have that new template set forward that includes your space, that includes your mind, that includes, so many different things.
Yeah, like we have to train our mind.
Yeah, so you're not going to reach enlightenment if you're not setting the stage for it.
Yeah, we have to look at it from all levels, not like, oh, I'm going to be spiritual for this 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right, and that's how we've been living. Yeah. Right? It's like, I'm on my spiritual journey, and I'm like, it's the same journey. It all has to come in together. It's the same.
So you're saying
journey.
The spiritual journey and the enlightenment journey is the same, or something?
The human journey.
The human journey. Okay.
Being a person, like in the end, it's all got to be one.
Yeah.
Right? We live within...
There's no separate journey to take. It's just
spiritual.
The goal of everyone should be to reach enlightenment, we would hope.
Yeah, to be self-realized.
To be self-realized.
To where we're operating in the now.
Yeah.
Right? And that, again, enlightenment. Eckhart Tolle's been talking about that for years, being able to be real time.
Right.
That means your brain is not on a lag. You're not having to go off and think about things for 4 days.
Right.
Right? And coming back with boundaries and restrictions.
Yeah.
Like you're real time, like, no, thank you.
Well, I even say, it's like this umbrella. We talk about these umbrella words. Like enlightenment sometimes can be that, but we are thinking of it very practically as far as like, here's enlightenment. Okay, that's self-realization. How do we get to self-realization? That integrity, because what you're saying, doing, and thinking is real time. And then it's like, okay, well, how do you get that? So let's dig into that.
The steps.
How do you get into that space of integrity? I know you're kind of talking about these 5 systems that we've got going. So is that part of creating that integrity to then reach enlightenment?
Yeah, and for those of us that have been through a lot of early trauma, right? We've been knocked off center.
Yeah.
And time has been disturbed. Memory has been disturbed. How we're programmed has been disturbed. Are we super magical? Yes. Is it our magic operating in integrity? Right? When we're operating in survival, we're not in integrity always. Right? Because that is about like how you're going to get your next breath. It's an I, me, I space. And we have to move out of survival. So when we're called to go from I to we, right? We're standing up like the lioness in charge of the pride.
Okay.
Right? We're stepping into that space of authority, knowing what you're bringing to the table, knowing that if a lion comes in and he's going to try to eat your babies, you are going to kick his butt.
Yeah.
We have that, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I love that. Through nature, the females are power houses, right? And we need to rise into that, right?
Right, yeah. So, I mean, even with those systems, like, do you want to talk about that? Like, what does that even look like to have wholeness or integrity through those systems? Just briefly.
Yeah. That means that, like, our words are coming out with intention.
Yeah.
And we're not walking around going, oh, I didn't mean to say that.
Right, yeah.
Because you did, right? You did. And we have to take responsibility for that and look at it from an objective space and go, what words could I have used? Because we have to realize we have a viral program running in our mind. You know, even way back to the masters, he's like, vigilance over your mind to stay right-minded. So that is something that no matter if we move from trauma to enlightenment, that's something we watch all the time. We have to make sure that our behaviors are shifting to show the change. Yeah. Right? We have to make sure that our belief system is truly in alignment and is being upheld. Right? Are our beliefs operating from a space of fear and struggle and frustration and hiding in fear of doing wrong? Or are we able to trust our instincts and our inner wisdoms to go, yes, no, thank you, right? And it mean no, right? And that means no matter how many times somebody asks you to do something that you feel uncomfortable with, the answer is going to be the same. Yeah. Right. No matter who's in the room.
Yeah. Well, so like even with that though, that's like just enlightenment in general. You know, I think a lot of people try to do just like say energy work and reach enlightenment, like they'll go, or like that spiritual work and kind of leave everything else out of it. And maybe that's why that enlightenment doesn't hit the way that they're wanting to. Like, can you speak to that?
It's exactly true. Like, because we are humans and we have to learn to be good humans and be stewards of the planet and be stewards of other humans. Yeah. Right? And to be an emissary of that. Right? So everywhere we walk, we're operating from that space. Yeah. It's not like, oh, I'm going to be in integrity right now.
I'm going to be enlightened today.
Or I'm going to sit down and pray. We have to realize that our words are creating all the time. Yeah. Right? We're just not conscious enough to realize it.
Yeah.
And we think people are doing things to us, and, you know.
So do you think enlightenment and purpose are kind of similar? Because we're saying that the goal is to like reach this we space and be an emissary, and that's kind of like a purpose,
Well, I think that we must recognize that in every facet of life, we need healers. We need healer moms. We need healer dads.
Yeah.
We need healer doctors,
that's not
that are really caring.
Any job kind of
job
is a little bit like there's a healer space.
We need enlightenment in all of that.
Yeah.
Right? We need people being in integrity and not taking advantage of folks.
Yeah.
Right? For their money or for their dollars, right? Keeping them sick to keep their pockets lined. With that, those things have to change. Right? And, you know, most of our structure is based in fear as a human, right? We pay for insurance so that we, you know, just in case we might get sick. Like we're in that space of trying to stay ahead, one step ahead of disaster, right? And what I would love is if we could step together collectively into a place of growth and discovery and curiosity.
Right.
Because there's so much more here. So much more. Now, back to that quote, that space of you know, having that compass off center. If you're seeing a spirit over there and you don't ask questions, right, then your mind is going to fill up with all the negative input from TV, from everything.
Right.
And make a story.
Yeah.
Right? And really, maybe, you know, that spirit just wants to be seen for a minute.
Right. And that's a normal thing. Like, I think a lot, and it doesn't even have to be like a weird hoodoo thing. Like, I think just realizing that we're not, that stepping again into that we space allows you to go, okay, I'm not the only being on this planet, and there's probably spirits. There's things that are out there that can communicate with me, just like I'm talking to the universe or this God, or, you know, it's like, even though we can't see it, doesn't mean it's not there. So,
well,
like,
we're listening to the plant music
we're
right
listening
now,
to plants,
and your normal ears wouldn't be able to hear it, right? Yeah. So I think that us realizing that we're not a higher being than the plants, like they're giving all the time.
Yeah.
The animals are giving all the time, right? And we're sitting around thinking about ourselves, right? While the trees are burning and, you know,
so
children are starving.
It really is that enlightenment space is stepping into that we space. It's stepping into something bigger than yourself, but being so solid in your foundation in that, like you are that strong beam of light that is connecting because you're whole and you're walking right on this planet. Like that is in that piece of enlightenment.
Yeah, and you take ownership for when you misstep. Yeah. We're all going to make mistakes. Yeah. Right? You know? And if you're choosing to be a mom, then be a mom. Be the best mom that you could be, right? Give your kids what they need to become who they need to be, not who we want them to be.
Yes, that's,
right? See who they are.
Yeah.
Right? If you're a doctor, decide, wow, how can I truly change lives? Yeah. Right? Maybe that means setting up a clinic that isn't 3 minutes. Right. In a room with somebody.
But yeah, I mean, I think that difference is like, you don't have to be this big thing. Like, you don't have to set up a clinic, but you can just do it in your own home. And
you
like,
can
that
do
is
it in
part
your
of
practice.
This enlightenment, you know, piece is like incorporating it into every day and really stepping into that role once you've cleared the trauma, essentially.
Yeah. And you know, I think that we often as healers and when we step into spiritual get very weird about money. Yeah. Right? And you know, we can't continue to help people without money. Yeah. So that
people are working lots of day jobs and trying to make things work and accelerate their personal life, but it does feel so separate from professional too. So even just being able to like say, how can I heal in my job? that could allow you to step into that question space for enlightenment.
You know, that means if we're a checker at the grocery store, actually smile at someone.
Yeah.
And ask them how their day is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, if we're carrying a bag of groceries to the car, do it with kindness.
Right.
Right? If you're in line at Starbucks, pay for somebody's coffee down the line that you feel like, oh, they're stretching to have a coffee today, or this is just a gift.
Yeah.
Right? That's us moving forward, spreading, right, our gifts wherever we go.
Right.
It's not separate.
And that's huge. And it doesn't have to be this big foreign thing that feels unattainable, or that you do have to take like this big spiritual journey to reach. It's like, it doesn't have to be like that.
No,
it can be,
the indigenous lived like that.
Yeah, it's just like every day could be enlightened very simply if you just do the work and then step into that space of integrity and wholeness. And it could be very simple in your everyday life, and you'd feel a lot more fulfilled.
When we're in integrity, we don't feel anxiety.
Yeah.
Right? Anxiety comes when we've done something out of alignment.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Everything starts shaking in there.
Yeah.
Right? And once we come into integrity, so many people will be like, oh, wow, I don't have anxiety anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Or I have anxiety today. And my first question is, okay, what do you need to look at right now?
Yeah.
Because, you know, this is about you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? And you're out of integrity at this very moment.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Well, that's what I feel like enlightenment is something that we are actively trying to shift the perspective on too with what we're doing and the Trauma to Enlightenment Academy. We've got lots of courses on trauma. There's a lot more coming out with enlightenment. We have a lot of in-person events that help to kind of facilitate both.
And some circles.
Mm-hmm. So we would love for y'all to kind of join that space with us and see who you are and see how you can incorporate that into your everyday life. Is there anything else on enlightenment that you want to leave us with, Sherry?
Well, yeah, enlightenment. Turn the light on.
Yeah.
Right? Turn the light on. Okay. When we're in fear, we're in the dark.
Yeah.
Right? And I think there's a level of fear instilled in us that sometimes we don't even know it's there.
Yeah.
Right? It's coming out in the way we're interacting with the beauty that's around us. Absolutely. So it's turn the light on.
I love that. Well, we hope y'all turn your lights on today. Thank you so much for joining us.